Well, of course, there were no, well, all we had was pitons at that time, and John Solithe had created this chromoly piton, which he made from the axles of Ford cars. The back axle, he'd hammer them out and make pitons out of them. Those were the first hard steel pitons made, which were necessary for the valley here because of the bottoming shallow cracks. So you could hit them a lot harder and they'd go in. When I first started climbing, all the climbs followed major crack systems. So you're bound to have chimneys and chimneys eventually. So you'd follow the major crack systems. And so a lot of the climbing was interior climbing, where you're inside. People were always, like in the 70s, they'd say, well, how come you don't wear harnesses? We didn't wear harnesses because you could rotate the knot to the outside on the Swami belt, which was, it keeps the rope from rubbing, so you don't get a hole in the rope there. And so that's why we stayed with the Swami belt for so long. Also, we were too afraid to fall, so you didn't want to fall. And you have to wear a hammer and just pitons. And in fact, when I started, we didn't have the Kern mantle ropes yet. I used like Gold Line, or I had a Columbia nylon rope, and it's the classic twisted ones like you see in the 1800s in the Alps. So things were quite a bit different then. When I arrived here, there were 3 5-10 pitches in Yosemite. There was Rixon's right side, what we call the East Chimney. There was Split Pinnacle Lieback, which was the hardest, which nobody hardly ever got done, and Crack of Doom. Those were the 3 5-10 pitches in Yosemite.
For more than 30 years now, Jim Birdwell has been climbing on the mighty wall of the El Capitan. During this time, he didn't just get older, the times have also changed. Climbers haven't forged their own pitons for a long time now. Modern safety techniques have revolutionized climbing. But the difficulties of the routes on El Capitan are higher because of the performances of top climbers today. They're not called Solity, Robbins, or Birdwell anymore. Instead, climbers like Hill, Hirayama, or Huber are the new elite. Once again, Alexander Huber is on his way to the vertical granite of El Capitan. A new line on this impressive wall, a new challenge, a new dream. For 3 weeks now, he has been at the center of the climber's universe, the Yosemite Valley. Together with his friend Ivo, he is working on a plan to make his dream become reality. A new route in the heart of the southwest face, El Corazon. Every single climbing move has to be checked and worked out to ensure success in such a big wall. The grade 513, 2,500 feet off the ground. Even to Alexander, this is anything but easy. Claustrophobic chimneys, smooth corners, steep cracks, horizontal roofs. Nothing below. Climbing in a world turned upside down.
It's really frustrating because I tried hard, but again and again I fall into the rope. But I must stay focused on my goal. I have to believe in myself.
After 2 weeks hard training in the route, Alexander thinks he should have a good chance to climb it free in a single attempt. But first, he needs 3 days of rest. Camp 4, the home of the climbing freaks. Alexander's first path in the morning leads him to the cafeteria of the Yosemite Lodge.
How's it going? Nice pants.
Oh yeah,
Keep you warm.
no, don't get dirty. That's a good thing about it.
How's that?
You don't get dirty, never.
Even though money is tight with the Rock Monkeys, visits to the cafeteria are an obligation. The coffee club is the meeting point. Here they talk about the most important thing in the world, climbing. Here plans are made for their next journeys into the vertical world. Climbers from all over the globe are sitting at this table. Rob Miller, the first American to free climb the Free Rider at El Capitan. Chongo, the most senior valley resident, the philosopher of the scene. Cedar Wright, one of the fastest climbers in the valley. Heinz Zack, the climbing photographer from Tyrol. In 1986, he was a witness when Wolfgang Gülich free-soloed the breathtaking roof Separate Reality.
You just have to imagine how many of the good climbers have a hard time in the 7 meters long roof, and then it almost seems to be impossible what Wolfgang Gülich has done with his free solo ascent of Separate Reality.
Die Stelle wird immer ein Unsicherheitsfaktor bleiben, ganz egal wie gut er ist. Und er ist dann auch zu mir raufgeklettert oder zuerst, wie er sich schon vorbereitet hat, wie er sich getebt hat, habe ich halt genau gemerkt, er steht total 100% unter Strom. Gell. Der ist komplett ferngesteuert eigentlich schon. Gell. Der hat genau gewusst, er wird in 5 oder 10 Minuten da einsteigen und das Ding einfach durchziehen. Und ich habe mich halt noch relativ schnell da auf positioniert, um halt auch in der richtigen Stellung zu hängen, um die Bilder zu machen. Und das war Wahnsinn, weil ich habe es eigentlich sonst kaum mehr so gespürt, dass so eine Spannung gesprungen ist. Weißt, die Spannung ist einfach recht übergesprungen auf mich. Ich habe richtig auch zittert. Gell. Der Wolfgang ist dahergekommen, den Ritz, und hat da noch zittert bei mir, direkt vor mir. Also, und da hängst du ja ein paar Millimeter neben dem. Gell. Das ist ja Körper an Körper. Und da habe ich mir gedacht, ich weiß nicht, ob das gescheit ist, gell, aber der war schon komplett programmiert, gell, wie er es halt noch immer durchgezogen hat, ganz genauso wie er seine anderen Projekte auch, und genauso hat er es halt dann da durchgezogen. Und der hat dann ziemlich rausgeknackelt am Anfang, gell, so Schotter, hat nicht so solid ausgeschaut, aber komischerweise dann auf einmal kurz vor der Schlüsselstelle ist irgendwie anders geworden, gell, und dann hat das total kontrolliert und zack, zack, zack einfach durchgezogen und ist ausgeklettert. Gell.
Das passt schon sehr. Later at night we are back in Camp 4 and we are all sitting around the campfire and we suddenly realized that there is something going on. A game of pushing the bottle has turned into a spontaneous part in Camp 4. The object of the game is to push a bottle forward as far as possible together with a partner. The problem is that the second one isn't allowed to touch the ground. Unfortunately, the later it gets, the harder it becomes for my friend Ivo to understand the game. The party goes on. The crowd moves on the Rebirth Channel, which is a boulder problem from the 70s. You have to dive upside down into crack between two huge boulders, and then you have to regain the starting point on the other side of the blocks. But after dark, this is anything but easy.
Every Sunday in Camp 4 there is free coffee, donated by Park Ranger Lincoln Else. The coffee chat serves to improve the understanding between the rangers and the climbers. Unlike some of his colleagues, Else is on the side of the climbers, probably because he too practices this sport.
We don't want to improve the place. It's hard, and that's part of the deal.
Yeah, I know.
Established bolts that you were using. So you weren't laying any of your own protection.
Somehow,
Yeah, sure, you have to.
A typical day in the valley starts with coffee. Even if you're not climbing, it's never boring here.
Let's go bouldering! It'll be fun!
Back at our campsite, I meet Chongo, who hands me his newest work, a book he wrote detailing his personal views on quantum mechanics.
El universo entero. Este libro es una aventura de pensamiento, una historia en búsqueda de la verdad.
Chongo has more or less retired from climbing. Now his passion belongs to his philosophical writings. Usually he reduces his physical actions to a minimum. People may think everything about him is slow, but sometimes he manages to surprise everyone.
Nice, Chongo.
A short time later, at the parking lot of Camp 4, I meet Lynn Hill with her 3-month-old son Merced. After free climbing the nose, her words, "It goes, boys," were almost a provocation for the male-dominated climbing world. But for me, her words were the motivation to give it a try and climb El Capitan by myself. Lynn tells me that she's going to drive to Tuolumne today to bowl in the highlands of Yosemite. I think the idea is good, so I decide to go there myself to climb a few easy routes on my day of rest. You always find someone to come along. In this case, it's Ben, who is hanging out just like the others at the parking lot of Camp 4. It doesn't take long to convince Ben to leave the dust of the campground. All of us head out for the Tuolumne Meadows. Past El Capitan, along a mountain pass road, we reach the Tenaya Lake. On the bank of this beautiful lake is the Great White Book. An easy and not really steep route, but a lovely bit of climbing along a huge corner. We are climbing monkey style, which means fast and without a rope.
Fucking bitchin' here. We both are fucking bitchin' climbers.
It's fair to say.
rock monkeys.
Rock monkeys. Not to be confused with the Bavarian rock monkey.
I think Bavarian rock monkey and Californian high country rock monkey have to go down now.
Yes, I think so.
I believe. So,
yeah.
Californian high country rock monkey goes first.
Thank you.
Because of their cooler temperatures, the highlands of Tuolumne are perfect for Lynn Hill to go bouldering.
Climbing in the valley has always been a great lesson in climbing for me and for anyone who comes here, because even if you're strong on limestone or sport climbing, you're used to big holes, you're used to just pulling hard on steep rock. Well, it's a completely different game here because you have slabs that can be so hard that you can't even see the holds, but you're really pulling hard on very technical things, and it teaches you how delicate you can be and still stick to the rock. And also for crack climbing, it teaches you how to jam and how to place gear and systems. It teaches you how to live in a vertical world if you do big walls. You learn how to protect yourself and make things easier, and it's a whole different learning process.
Just like every afternoon, the climbers meet each other in the El Cap Meadows. Ammon McNeely tells his story about how a couple of years ago he found himself in jail for 4 weeks because he didn't pay for a meal and then tried to run away from the rangers.
Huge rocks! Huge fucking rocks! Just all madman style.
This isn't just a place to tell old stories. It's also the ideal spot to watch climbers in the 1,000-meter-high wall of El Capitan. But our eyes aren't always focused just on the vertical action. Easy living is the climber's philosophy in these parts, and together with the sun, the last monkeys leave this magical place.
But that's the safety, basically. That's this time.
The next day, Alexander is on his way to the Yosemite village to buy food for the days on El Corazon. Here you meet the other world. The Yosemite is not just a valley for climbers. Every year, more than 3 million tourists visit this famous national park. Unlike the climbers, the tourists come here not just for the huge granite walls, but also for the waterfalls. The Yosemite Falls are the 4th highest on Earth, and there is no other place where you could find so many waterfalls concentrated in a single valley.
In the afternoon we meet our friend Sean, the most wanted person in the valley. Because of its constant troubles with the rangers, he has moved to Los Terra Spire with a few friends. High above the valley he leaves his problems behind, and at the same time he can do what he loves the most, highlining.
The adrenaline is very strong. It's definitely one of the reasons why I do it too. There's a lot of sports I've done, but you don't get the adrenaline rush like you do with climbing. With slacklining. You walk the line and you're just trying to fight it, and you're looking down, you're thousands of feet off the ground. It's pretty scary. It's really intense.
That's good.
The days of rest are over. We get ready. Finally, it's about to start.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2 degrees. Okay, that's good.
That's all we need, I guess.
Yeah.
The first part of the wall is not too steep, the climbing still not too hard, but then after 300 meters of climbing, the first crux. It's the big flake. A steep and thin crack, 513 plus bad protection on burpees and other questionable gear. For me, it's the point where I find out whether I'm able to transfer for 100% my power onto the rock.
Creatures of the past, alive in you, the shadows that they cast are chasing you, chasing you, are chasing you. Reaches from the towns, reaches from the towns. Save yourself. Save yourself. Save yourself. I think it's worse. I think it's worse. I think it's worse. I think it's worse.
The coffee corner is a kind of dihedral you only would find in granite. Absolutely no holes, just two blank walls which meet at a 90-degree angle. Smearing, stamping, pushing, these are movements which are anything but normal. great roof, which I have to traverse to the left for about 100 feet, is the crux of the whole climb. The question is whether I still do have enough energy to do these hard moves. Here I will see whether I'm able to do it or whether I'm going to fail.
Ivo! I'm on the tower!
The crux is behind me. Ivo is following with the help of the tumors. Now there are only 150 meters to go. I'm tempted to give it a try straight away, but I feel exhaustion coming on after all the difficult climbing and I decide to take a break. There is something like a little bit wet streak.
Yeah.
I climb up all this wet streak. It face climbs out to the right. Or if you climb to 2 more 513 pitches to go. 200 feet of difficult climbing which stand between me and success. The last hurdle, the A5 traverse, 30 meters long. I have to give everything I've got for the last time. The climbing is getting easier now. The last 100 meters to the top are like a gift to me. Totally exposed, nearly 1,000 meters above the Yosemite Valley.
Now party time. Wissens. Ein Feuer. Dann hat es die 30 Meter hoch. Roger well.
Save yourself.
Relax and breathe. Save yourself. No problem. Come on.
Creatures of the past.
Now just turn, don't
Walking alive in you.
That's it. You got it now.
Well, backer cracker is just one of the coolest roof cracks in the world. Probably the first roof crack that a lot of people try. And starts out with a big move to a hand jam, and then it goes right into fingers, and you really only have a couple of finger lock moves and a big throw for the lip, and then you're out of there. You're onto the Jimi Hendrix experience, and then one exciting mantle to the top, and it's got to be one of the coolest boulder problems in the world.